Hello, everyone. This is Mr. Buhler. Some of you know me as Mike, and some of you will remember me from visiting your school to do storytelling. There's a few of you, like at Aileen Wright School in Cochrane and St. Patrick's School in Cobalt, possibly St. Patrick's School in Kapuskasing. You might not have met me this year, I'm not sure. But I tell stories to students, and I was asked to tell a very special story today to you folks. So I'm going to go get my magical book of stories. It's the Book of Wonder. It's a 1,000-year-old book written by monks. Long time ago, they found this book in an old castle, and it's got all the stories in the world. So we're going to come and tell you a story now. Now, to help me with the story today, I have Princess Zerinda from Sweden. She is going to draw some pictures for us to help illustrate the story. All right? So, the story I'm going to tell you tonight, or today, is an old Russian folk tale. It's at least 1,000 years old. No one knows who wrote this story or where it comes from, but it's a thing of beauty. Once upon a time, a long time ago, there lived a young man with his dear old mama. They were very, very poor, and they lived on a very small farm. They had 2 sad old cows that gave some milk once a day, enough milk to sell for some money, and they had a small field where they could grow carrots and turnips and some corn and potatoes to give them food. And although they were very, very poor, they were also very, very happy. Happy because they always had food to eat. They were very careful in the autumn to harvest it, to take it off the fields when the leaves turned colors. They stored the food carefully in their cellar. They had a beautiful little house that kept them warm in winter. And they had friends. They had their neighbors to keep them happy. They could share the good times, like Christmas and Easter and birthdays. And when things were bad or somebody was very sad, they could always share the bad times as well with their friends and neighbors. One day, the young man was working in the field as a 16-year-old man, and a soldier on a big old war horse came riding by. And he looked at the young man and he said, "You, it's time to serve the king. You must come with me and serve in the army for 10 years. And so the young man went into the house to say goodbye to his mama, and he put on his good boots and his coat, and off he walked with the soldier. And soon he joined many other young men and began to serve in the army on the frontier of Russia. Now, luckily for the young men and the soldiers, there was no war going on, but they had to keep the border safe from the roving bands of marauders that would sometimes steal across the border in order to raid the Russian villages. Now, what the young man noticed right away is that every Saturday morning they were paid money for being in the army. He couldn't believe it. Normally during the week they'd put on their boots and strap on their swords and march all day long, but on Saturday mornings they were paid money. And then the soldiers would go to the nearby villages to spend their money foolishly in the fancy restaurants. But the young man looked at the money in his hand that he had been paid, and he thought to himself, what would happen if I saved all this money every Saturday morning for 10 years? Instead of spending it, if I saved it, in 10 years when I saw my dear old mama, she'd be happy to see me, and then I could surprise her with a big bag of money that we could use to buy more cows that could make more milk for us, and we could buy more fields to grow more food, and we'd be able to make some money so that we could buy an oil lamp to see the book with at night when we were reading, or to buy better coats for winter. And he was very excited. So when none of the soldiers were looking, the young man took out his knife and he cut a slit in the mattress of his bed, and he took a sack and he put his money in the sack and he hid it in the mattress. And every Saturday after that, he would get his money and he would quickly hide it in his bed when no one else was looking so that he could save it for his mama. Now one day, 10 years later, the officer came into the barracks where the soldiers lived, and he said, "Well, men, you've served the king faithfully for 10 years. You can all go home. To help you on your return journey, here is a loaf of bread and a copper coin so that you can buy some food. Good luck, gentlemen, and God bless you." And so the young man was excited. It was finally time to go home and see his mama. But nearby there were two soldiers who were very upset. They had spent 10 years in the army but spent all their money foolishly. And they looked at one another and they said, "We've been in the army 10 years and all we have to show for it is a loaf of bread and a copper coin? This is terrible. We're going to go back to our village more poor now than we were before." And just as they were getting upset about this, they looked over and saw their friend, the happy soldier, pull his bag of money out of his mattress. And they looked at each other and they said, "Money! Look at all the money!" And the two soldiers conspired together and came up with a plan. And they went up to their friend, the happy soldier, and they said, "Friend, we've been in the army together 10 years. I think it's time for us to say goodbye soon, but maybe we should walk together for a few days in order to remember the good old times." And the happy soldier said, "Nah, I just want to get home to my mama as fast as I can. So if it's okay with you, I'll just say goodbye now." And the one unhappy soldier said, "You think you're better than us. You don't like us." "No, I do like you," said the happy soldier. "No, you don't," said the other angry soldier, "because if you did, you would walk with us. But as it is, you want to walk and leave without us." "Okay, fine," said the happy soldier. "I'll go with you." And so the three soldiers left together and walked off down the road. And they walked for some time when they came to a quiet road that led off of the main road. And the two angry soldiers said, "Hey, this is a shortcut to your mama's house. Let's go down this quiet road. It'll save you at least a day's worth of walking." And the happy soldier said, "No, guys, I want to stay on the main road so I can get home to my dear old mama." And the other soldiers said, "But this is a shortcut to your mama's house. Follow us. Come on, let's go." And the happy soldier said, "Guys, I think we should say goodbye. I just want to get home to my mama's house." And so the two angry soldiers said, "You don't believe us. You think that we're lying. You don't believe that this is a shortcut to your mama's house." So finally the happy soldier said, "Okay, guys, that's fine. I'll go with you down this quiet road." And so off they went together. And after they had walked for some distance, the two angry soldiers looked up ahead of them, and they saw nobody coming their direction. And when they looked behind them, they saw that there was nobody behind them. And they slowly approached a big old oak tree. And there was a water well beside the tree where travelers could quench their thirst. And as they approached the well, they let the happy soldier go on ahead of them. And then the two angry soldiers, with their walking sticks, smashed the happy soldier over the head and knocked him to the ground. And they beat him up. And when he was almost unconscious, they reached into his backpack and stole the money that was meant for his dear old mama and the farm. Then they laughed and ran off down the road. Now, the happy soldier was sore. His body was sore. He'd been hit so hard on the head that he had gone blind. He couldn't see a blessed thing. And he crawled over with his aching body to the well that he knew was there, and he leaned up against the cold stones, and he prepared to die. Now, he was feeling very, very sad. He was also very sore, but he was sad because his friends had betrayed him. And he was sad because all the money he'd saved to surprise his mama with had been stolen from him after 10 years of being careful to save it all. So he was heartbroken. Soon the air cooled and he could feel the birds' calls slowing, or hear them slowing, and he knew that night was coming. And he went into a very restless sleep because of his pain. And some time later, he woke up and he could hear the birds starting to sing their sleepy call again. And he could feel the cool air in his face, and it smelled like moisture was in the air, and his pants were wet from the dampness in the grass, and he knew that the morning dew had fallen. And he realized he was still alive, and he gave thanks to God that he was alive. And just then, 3 ravens came and landed in the tree above him. "Caw, caw, caw!" laughed a raven. "The poor foolish humans! If they only knew that there's a healing dew on the grass around this well that can cure people of blindness." "Caw, caw, caw!" called the second raven. "The poor foolish humans! If they only knew that the flowers that grow around this well could cure the princess of the illness that is killing her." "Caw, caw, caw!" laughed the third raven. "The poor foolish humans in the city who are dying from a lack of water, if they only knew that beneath the statue in the city square there's a spring of water waiting to burst forth." "Caw, caw, caw!" the ravens laughed, because they could smell death in the air, and off they flew. And the happy soldier, leaning up against the well, still blind, couldn't believe it. He had heard 3 secrets from the ravens. When he was sure that they were gone, he swept his hands over the grass and filled them with dew, and he put his hands to his eyes. And when he pulled his hands away, he could see again. And then he saw all the flowers. And so he pulled all the flowers up from the grass and put them in his backpack. And then he got up with his walking stick and slowly hobbled down the road. And he was very sore from being beaten up. He had a headache still, and his back was sore, and his hips were sore, and his legs were sore. But off he went, and 4 days later entered into the city where the king would spend his summers in the summer palace. He walked right through the city square, past the church, past the big statue in the middle of the city square, right to the castle. And when he got to the big oak doors of the castle, he knocked. And a guard answered the door and said, "What do you want?" And the happy soldier said, "I'm a pilgrim. I've served the king for 10 years, and now I have come to cure his daughter, the princess, of the illness that is killing her." "Come in," said the guard, and the guard went to the king and explained to the king that a pilgrim had arrived to cure the princess of the illness that was killing her, and the king was overjoyed because all of his doctors had tried to protect her and save her and had failed. So the king was brought to the pilgrim, and they introduced themselves to each other, and then the pilgrim, the happy soldier, went to the bedchambers where the princess lay on her deathbed. The happy soldier took a flower out of his backpack and made a pot of tea. He poured a cup for her and helped her drink. And as she drank the tea and rested on her bed, he began to tell her stories from his childhood and sing her songs that he had heard his own grandmother sing to him. And at the end of the day, when they were done visiting, he left and came back the second day. And again he pulled out the flower from the backpack, made another pot of tea, and visited with her and helped her drink the tea. And this continued for 4 days, and 5 days, and 6 days, and 7 days. And by the 7th day, the princess was getting better. She was able to smile at her new friend, the pilgrim, the happy soldier. And she was able on the 7th day to sit up in the bed and put her feet on the floor and wave goodbye to him as he left. After 4 more weeks, a whole month, of bringing flowers to her and making tea, the princess was strong enough to get up and eat 3 meals a day and go for walks around the castle and the castle grounds. And so it was that on one day the princess and the pilgrim, the happy soldier, would go for a walk to the orchards to look at the fruit trees. And the next day they took a walk to the stables to look at the horses. And on a third day they walked through the castle and looked at all the fancy artwork on the castle walls. And after 2 months, the princess was fully recovered. And the princess and the happy soldier realized that they had become close friends, and they had fallen in love. And when they realized they had fallen in love, they decided they wanted to be married. And so the the young man went to the king and said, "Your Highness, your daughter, the princess, has been cured of the illness that was killing her. But now, as it turns out, we have fallen in love and would like to be married." And the king laughed a hearty laugh. "Oh, my fine young man, believe me when I say I am overjoyed and forever thankful that you've cured my daughter. But you can't just walk into this castle as a stranger and 2 months later marry a princess and become a prince yourself. That doesn't work. You have to prove yourself to the people. For example, if my people are suffering from a lack of water, if you could bring my people water, then they would know that you're a good and honorable man, and they would welcome you and accept you as marrying the princess and becoming a prince yourself." "Very well," said the happy soldier. "If you would like water, this is what you do. There is a statue in the middle of the city square. It is a king with a sword up in the air. If you pull that statue over, you will have all the water that you want." And the king laughed again and said, "Young man, I can't pull that statue over. That's a statue of my great-great-great-great-grandfather, the conqueror. It's made of bronze and copper and other fine metals. We can't just pull that over. The people love that statue." And the young man said, "Pull that statue over, and you shall have all the water you want." Now the king looked in the young man's eyes and saw truth and determination, and realized that this young man maybe was speaking truth. And so he said, "Very well." And he called together a platoon of soldiers and 6 strong war horses with some thick rope. And they bound up the statue. And the horses pulled with all their might. And soon they were able to topple that statue over. And when the statue was torn from its platform, a spring of water gushed high into the air. And the people were overjoyed when they saw this cold, crystalline water coming from an underground spring. And the masons came with their fine stones and made a pool to hold all that beautiful water. And then people from around the city came with their pails and ewers to collect the cold water to bring home to their families. And the young man was able to marry the princess, and he became a prince. Now, you might think, my friends, that the story ends there happily ever after. But there's more. 2 weeks after the wedding, the young man and the princess went to church. They decided to go to a Sunday morning mass. And following the mass, the prince and the princess began to descend the long staircase from the church doors, when at the bottom of the stairs they saw 2 beggars, dirty and unwashed, wearing rags, begging passers-by for alms, for money that they could use. And the prince saw these 2 dusty beggars, and his heart felt so sorry for them, and he decided that he wanted to help them. So he took out his money purse and took out 2 shiny silver coins. And he was about to give them the coins, but he also wanted to give them a blessing. So he leaned down toward them and looked carefully into their eyes. And when he did, who do you think he was looking at? I think you know, my friends. He was looking at the 2 soldiers who had robbed him. They were so foolish with money that they had taken all the money they'd stolen from the young man and spent it in a fortnight, and now it was gone. And they had nothing. And so there they were begging for money. And when the prince looked down at these 2 men, he said, "Hey, you're the 2 guys who beat me up and left me blind by the road to die and took all my money." And the 2 beggars looked up and said, "Hey, you're the guy we beat up and made go blind and left to die by the road and took all your money." And they saw that he was a prince, and they felt so scared they quickly groveled on the ground and said, we're so sorry. Please have mercy on us. We didn't mean to do it. It was an accident." Now, obviously, it wasn't an accident, but the 2 men were so pathetic that the prince, his heart broke for them, and he felt mercy in his soul, and he said, "Stand up." And he grabbed the 2 men by their shoulders and pulled them up. And he said, "I forgive you. Whatever has happened in the past has happened. I do not remember it nor bear a grudge. Not only do I forgive you for what you've done to me, but I'm going to give you a small house to live in this town. and I'm going to give you an allowance for money and clothing so you never have to beg again." "Thank you, your highness, thank you," said the two beggars, and they were given a house to live in. Now, my friends, you might think that the story ends there, and they can live happily ever after. But there's more. 2 more weeks followed, and the one angry soldier looked at the other angry soldier and said, "Something stinks around here. How is it that guy that we beat up, our friend in the army, we beat him up, left him blind to die by the road, and we took all his money, yet here he is, he can see again, and he's rich, he's got more money than we'll ever be able to count, and he's a prince. What good fortune befell him that he should get all of that? It's not right." Now the other soldier said, "I don't know, man, but let's just leave it alone. We've been forgiven. We've been given a whole new chance at life. Whatever good fortune he has, so be it. We've had good fortune. We've been forgiven." "No," said the other angry soldier. "I should be the prince, not him. I want to know what happened." And the other soldier again said, "Man, we've been forgiven. Just leave it alone." "No, I need to find out what happened." And so the angriest soldier the next Sunday morning went to the church and waited at the bottom of the steps once again for the prince and princess to come out of Mass. And when the prince came down the stairs, there was the angry soldier. And the angry soldier said, "Hello, Prince, how are you? Do you remember me?" And the prince said, "Yeah, of course I remember you. You're the one who beat me up and left me blind to die by the road, took all my money. And I've given you a house, and I've forgiven you. We're friends again." "That's right," said the angry soldier, "but please tell me, there's one thing bothering me. How is it that you are a prince with more money than I'll ever be able to count, with your eyesight restored? What good fortune came to you that you should not have died by that road, not stayed blind, and not stayed poor?" Now the prince couldn't tell a lie, and so he said, "My friend, something marvelous happened to me. I heard 3 secrets from the ravens, and those 3 secrets of the ravens restored my life." "Secrets of the ravens, thank you very much," said the angry soldier, and he ran home, got his backpack, filled it with bread, and he ran out of that town double time, and in 3 days approached the oak tree with the well. And when he got to that oak tree, he sat down beneath it quietly and waited for the ravens. Now, the evening came and the ravens still weren't there, and then the night came and it was cold and he shivered and he wondered if he was being foolish for being out here at all. But sure enough, early in the morning when the first morning light appeared and the birds slowly began to wake up and sing their songs, the 3 ravens came and landed in the oak tree above him, and they were mad. "Caw, caw, caw," yelled a raven. "The people know our secrets." "Caw, caw, caw," yelled the second raven. "The princess has had her health restored." "Caw, caw, caw," called the third raven. "The people in the city have water to drink." "But how did the people learn our secrets?" And the ravens cocked their heads sideways and looked down beneath them underneath the oak tree, and there they saw the Russian soldier sitting quietly and listening to them. And the ravens were mad, and they jumped from the tree, and they swarmed that unhappy soldier, and they took out his eyes and left him by the road with nothing but his walking stick. And off he walked into the cities of Europe, begging for money. "Money, money, somebody give me some money." And that's the end of the story. Thank you for listening to my story. Now, if you have the patience, I would like to ask you a couple of questions about the story. All right? Now, first let me put away the Book of Wonder here. 1,000-year-old book is heavy. I have some questions for you. And maybe you have some questions about the story too. Now, the first question I have is, did one of the soldiers learn to be thankful? Did one of the soldiers learn to be thankful? Now, when I look over at the pictures that Princess Zorinda drew, and thank you, by the way, to Princess Zorinda from Sweden for the pictures. She drew 3 soldiers here, the happy soldier, the really angry soldier, and then the soldier who's a little unsure about things. Does one of the 2 angry soldiers learn to be thankful? At the end, when one of the angry soldiers says, "How did that happy soldier get his good fortune to get his vision back?" Was there one soldier who said, "Man, let's leave it alone. We've been forgiven. We've been given a whole new life." That's right. It was this guy right here. He's thinking, man, there is something to be thankful for. A whole new start at life. And isn't that a beautiful thing that he learned that? And so one of the lessons in this story is that it's never too late for us to learn to be thankful. And being thankful can lead to a second question, which is, does being thankful protect that soldier from harm? Let me explain. The angriest of the 2 soldiers here, he's not thankful at the very end, is he? He just wants to know how the happy prince got his good luck. He thinks he should be a prince, the angry soldier does. Do you think he should be a prince? I didn't think so. I don't either. Anyways, he's not thankful, and so he finds himself in harm's way. He goes where he shouldn't go, and that is to purposely try to find out what the ravens are thinking and talking about. And that is a dangerous thing to do. The soldier who's thankful realizes that there's no need to take or do silly things because life is good, and he's happy about it. And so he is protected from harm. Now, I have another interesting question for you folks, and I don't have an answer to it. And I'm not sure if you don't have an answer, that's okay, but maybe you feel strongly about this one. But the question I have for you is, what cures the princess of the illness that is killing her? Is it the tea that cures her? Or is it friendship with the happy soldier that cures the princess of the illness that is killing her? The reason I asked this question is I started to think about this poor princess in a big old stone castle with no friends, no one to talk to. I think she might have been dying of a broken heart. But when she found friendship and someone to love her and someone whom she could love, suddenly life seemed a lot more exciting to her. So I sort of wondered if it was the tea or the friendship that cured the princess. Now, some students I've spoken to, they think maybe it was both. Both things cured the princess. But it's something for us to think about. All right? Now, I have one more question, and this is a question that the students always ask me. And that is, what about the mama? What about the happy soldier's mama? Do you think the happy soldier forgot about his mama after 10 years of saving money for her every single week? I don't think so. I think he remembered his mama very much. So, what's my other question? I guess the question is, what do you think the mama would do if the happy soldier, who is now a prince, wrote a letter to his mama and said, "Dear mama, I'm a prince now. You should come and live with me in this big old castle." Do you think the mama would want to move to the castle? Or do you think she'd want to stay at her farm where she's happy with her friends and with the work she has beneath the sky? Maybe she would only visit the castle at Christmas and Easter. Maybe she'd like to stay. Maybe she'd like to go to the castle. Maybe life in the castle would be quite exciting. Would she feel at home in the castle? So those are the kind of questions that we can ask ourselves. And we can ask ourselves, what would we do if we were the mama? Would we want to leave the farm where we're happy and where we work beneath the sky in the dirt, growing food, to live in the castle? Or would we want to move to the big castle? So those are some questions that we can ask. And I hope you've enjoyed the story. I appreciate you listening this long. And I appreciate the teachers who invited me to tell this story again. So thank you. And I hope that you have a great day. So blessings on your head. Now, friends, I just also wanted to very quickly add that in my work as a storyteller and working with students, my faith in Jesus or in God is very important. And I do believe that Jesus as a teacher and guide in my life is very important. So when I tell stories, I am trying to illustrate a teaching or a way of life that Jesus showed us. And so I just wanted to draw attention to a few basic things that we've already talked about with the questions. One is this notion of being thankful or learning to be thankful. Learning to be thankful is something that Jesus felt was very important. Another thing is the idea of forgiveness. We see that the prince forgives the two men who beat him up and injured him and stole from him. And so that's an important little moment in the story as well. And I think it frees the prince. The fact that he's able to forgive allows him to live happily ever after. And we also see the idea of friendship in this story. The princess and the prince-to-be become friends, and it probably rescues both of them and makes life a happy experience for them both. And again, friendship was very important to Jesus. He spent 3 years walking on the road on his way to the cross, and there was two things that kept him happy. One was that he had his friends to walk with him, and the second thing is that he prayed. And so prayer and friendship were very important to Jesus. So that's another reason why I like this story very much, and I wanted to share that with you. So thanks again, my friends. Bye-bye.